You are listening to the Icehouse Podcast, hosting conversations with gritty Kiwi business owners and leaders and industry-leading minds.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Icehouse Podcast. So awesome to be having a conversation today with Andrew Martin, who is known as Marty. So good to have Marty with us today. He is the Regional Director of the Strategic Specialist Group. He's also a coach at the Icehouse, and he has been speaking all across New Zealand this year at an event with the Icehouse and BNZ on succession and exit planning and growth funding, an incredible event that we've had some really positive feedback about. So we thought we'd get to know Marty a little bit more and talk about the events that are happening in the Manawatu and Tauranga for the rest of this year, 2023. So thank you, Marty, for being on the Icehouse Podcast.
Thanks, Bryar. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, good to have you on. I like to start with a nice general question. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're passionate about.
Myself, I have passion. I have thought on this. Passion for me is about living a balanced life. So when I look at life, I work on buckets. So there's certain different areas of your life, and it's trying to make sure you're not overweighted in any particular bucket. In fact, my buckets are what I put my browser bookmarks into. It's how I manage them. So everything from making a difference, how do you sort of make a dent on the world, through to friends and family, through to leisure. So, sometimes with those elements, you can actually knock a couple off at once. Mm-hmm. For example, I play summer league hockey, get out, get to do health and fitness, get some exercise, but also play it with my 15-year-old son, which means I get a bit of family time and a lot of friends in that. So it's really about how you make sure you hit all the areas and don't become overweighted in any particular area.
I love that. That's really cool. Cool to hear that you have buckets and that is how you sort of see that sort of work-life balance. Could you share a memorable moment from your career that maybe was a bit of an aha moment for what you do today, and then we'll jump into what that is.
Yeah, look, I consider it moments as in plural because it's the same thing that comes up over and over again. I grew up quite sports mad. I was always competent without being excellent. But look, when you play sports, it's about the collective and the team. And that's what I've had throughout my career. Everything from my first job right through to a meeting I had this morning, where you get a group together and it's how you build, I guess, a joint pathway that can be executed against and gives people vision and clarity and direction and something that they then feel they can go out and hit. So if I look back, that's probably the most, you look back on things you've done and you look at the things that give you the most joy. And it's that connecting with people where you get together, and it's the old adage of the whole being greater than the sum of the parts. And that's the kind of stuff that really excites me, and I still love it to this day. And we do it regularly when we help organisations set their strategy. And part of that whole process is getting them together as a team, taking all the varied views and inputs, and helping them align to a common purpose, direction, and strategy. And it's something they can then go out and move towards. And when you get it right, it's fantastic.
Oh, there must be so many magic moments, right? When it sort of settles and maybe the owner or the leader within the business has the aha moment for themselves. I'm sure there's some cool moments there.
Yeah, look, it is. And it's stuff they know. They just haven't had someone take them through the process of basically landing on it. So, the world's awash with good ideas, but to actually land on what you're going to do and have a plan and then start executing against, that's often where it misses. And too much strategy sits in a drawer or these days sits in a folder on your computer, and it's not hitting the light of reality. So getting there and actually making it real is what makes the difference, and that's a great part of the job.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, can you give a bit of history then to your career journey? How has it led to now working with businesses on their strategy and implementation?
Okay, so look, I grew up in rural New Zealand, Southern Hawke's Bay.
Nice.
And I'd spend my school holidays working on local farms. And then Dad said to me one day that perhaps I could always come back to farming, but go and get some education. And his words to me, "You're good at maths, why don't you go and become an accountant?" because the world always needs someone to keep a handle on the numbers. So I did go to university, but instead of accounting, I did marketing, which is probably close to the polar opposite of accounting, though these days with your traceability in marketing, maybe not. But that led me to working for Waddies. And look, FMCG is a great grounding in terms of how business works and making, and it's called fast-moving consumer goods for a reason. It's a high pace, and you've got to be on the money. If you miss a week of promotion because you're out of stock, those are goods you can never sell, especially if you've paid to have them as part of that promotion. And from there, I went to telecommunications, and I worked both in New Zealand for Spark, or in those days it was Telecom, and then moved to the UK, where I worked for Orange, and I looked after the email and messaging suite for Orange across the UK, from basically product inception right through to the customer service side. You didn't have line responsibility, but you had to guide it through the whole pathway, and it was kind of virtual ownership. So with that, when I arrived back in New Zealand with my wife and I, with our 3-year-old, I ended up working for Assured, which was an international consultancy. And what we did with Assured was help organisations, large organisations such as sort of ANZ, Telecom was one of our customers, Flickr Group, basically align themselves to what their core purpose was. And a great thing, it was a company that started out of some people with software, and they realised software had to solve the right problems. So how do you define the right problems? And from a project that they started in New Zealand with Shell, they ended up working in over 23 countries and became a centralised project within Shell out of The Hague. It was a real good grounding on sort of how to get alignment of an organisation to customer purpose. And again, from that, one of my clients there actually introduced me to Strategic Specialist Group. The regional director opportunity came up, and just was a good alignment between what I like to do and their purpose. So that became where I am today.
Very cool. Yeah, love that. I want to ask, within that, what's your superpower? What's your expertise then that you bring?
Look, I think it's about clarity. In fact, that's actually probably the great thing with SSG, or Strategic Specialist Group, is clarity is one of our watchwords. How do we take the various ideas? Because we find our clients don't lack for ideas, they lack for focus. And the biggest thing we have to do is stop them doing things. Because when you stop them doing things and get them focused on what's really important, they start to make more progress, and then they can start to do more things. Otherwise, they just get lost with time. So having clarity and giving them steps to make it real. So look, I've just signed with an Icehouse client, and I've got a year-long coaching engagement. And it's just perfect for how you actually move an organisation forward, because it's taking their strategy, working with their leadership team on the individual elements they have to deliver, doing quarterly refreshes on that strategy, and then liaising with the board and reporting on progress as a trusted third party. So it's got a nice full circle approach to it, but it's really about how do you take a strategy and make something happen with it. So that's fortunately what I love doing, but it's also, if you're going to talk on superpowers, it's what I'd say mine is.
Very cool. Fantastic answer. So you've been touring recently throughout this year, actually delivering events alongside, the Icehouse and BNZ on succession and exit planning specifically. Can you share what your thoughts are on the importance of succession? There are a lot of people within the Icehouse community that are part of family businesses, or maybe not, that are looking towards the future and thinking, what does this look like for me? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, firstly, succession and exit have got very similar underlying needs. We look at succession as an internal transfer. So that could be to a management buyout, so within staff, or could be family, could be employee share option plans as well, or external, where you might say be acquired by a strategic buyer or potentially private equity, or potentially these days listing. You can list at quite a low level with secondary stock exchanges or exchanges like Catalyst. So that's how we look at it. But the challenge with it, it's the important, but it's not the urgent. because it's not the stuff that's really going to be biting you on a day-to-day basis. And it's underappreciated just how much effort and work there is in making a business exit ready or transferable. So that's really getting people to take a long-term view, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of an owner's personal wealth tied up in the business, and they've spent years creating it. And look, they deserve to realise the rewards, of all those years of efforts. And the last thing, I guess, there's a process you can follow. So whilst you may not go through it, if you follow a structure and a process, like a lot of things, people have been here before, you can make for a successful exit, and you can get the right things in place, which just give you a better chance of success.
What are some indicators for businesses to go, okay, this is something I need to start thinking about? Because from my experience, in terms of chatting with alumni and business owners, maybe they think about it a little bit too late.
Yeah, like it's being exitable is something that's years in the making. Comes down to transferability. And if you think, look, if an owner, we'll make an example up. If they've been in their business 20 years, they've spent 20 years tightly ingrained, and they are tightly wound into how that business operates. Now, a transferable business needs to be able to operate outside of that owner. So you don't unwind those 20 years overnight. There's lots of things in terms of the information when you come for a sale that you need to have available. You want to start pre-populating and pre-planning that. The systems and structures that make it transferable. So it's not something you can do in 6 months, and it's something if you build a business well, because exit planning is just good business planning. So the elements that make for a business that's transferable or exitable, they're the same elements that will allow it to grow and allow it to successfully operate in the world. So have those things in mind and start building them in. The sooner you do it, the better. Like, you can never start exit planning too early, but you can start it too late.
Yeah, absolutely. Do dynamics change a bit with family business?
Yep.
Yeah, I can imagine in a huge way.
We're all part of families, and there can it varies so widely between families, but there can be that, I guess, inability to let go of the prior generation.
Yeah.
One of the things we try and emphasise is generation 1 or generation 4. If it's I was recently talking to a 5th generation business, but generation 1 has to give enough room and also enough freedom for generation 2 to grow into the role. There is also the other challenge can be funding it. Now, when we go out with a BNZ, they talk to how you've got options to fund family transition. So it is doable. And it generally happens over time as well, with partial buyout. But it's really making sure there's the room to grow and the ability to let go and let the next generation come through, take over, and run it independently of the prior.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And so many, dynamics at play there. And so I do love having actually sat in one of the events, the one that you did in the Waikato earlier in the year, hearing your guys' perspective on sort of the strategy and the thinking behind exit planning and succession. But then great to hear from BNZ as well about the financial options, how to actually bridge the gap there to make it possible. It's interesting.
One person said to us after we did the first event was, we give the why, and then BNZ will come in and talk about some of the how. How can you actually make things flow and make this happen? And we talk about why you need to do it. Like, we cover some of the how, but not the funding side. We leave that to the experts.
Exactly. No, it's very cool. It's good. How did you personally get passionate about exit planning and succession? Did it just come up in your strategy world, or was it? Yeah.
Okay, honestly, that's it. It did. We consider ourselves, there's 3 things we do. We help people get big, out, or in. So getting big is growth execution. How do you execute a growth strategy? And it comes back to what we talked about before, where you got to stop doing things and make sure the things you are doing are the really important and the right things. When we were going through that biz dev, finding clients in that space, exit came up a lot. So people we were talking to wanted to exit. And we had gone through this with a few clients. So we had a rough idea. Well, we knew what was needed to be in place from those experiences, but we just went and educated ourselves, because once you start looking, you realize there's a wealth of material out there that can guide how you give information.
Awesome.
And having been through a couple with clients, we then made it a key pitch with regard to, if you want to exit, here's how you manage the business side, and here's how you manage the ownership side of an exit. And lastly, get in, that's about market entry.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's brilliant. Are there any common misconceptions around succession and exit planning that you'd like to debunk in this moment, Marty?
Look, yeah, there are. People just do leave it too late.
Yes, yeah.
They, and one of our partners from the BNZ talks about this, because he's come across it regularly as well, which is, people come to him, they want to exit. There's no urgency. They just want the money in the bank account in 6 months' time. So there's two things we look at with that. Firstly, exit readiness is a state of fact, not a state of mind. So it's actually about how transferable your business is, and you can measure that. There is indicators with regard to what makes for a transferable business, including your leadership team and how empowered they are.
Okay.
It's not just the decision to sell. So that's the first thing. And it's not just a business decision. We talk about three legs to the stool. There's the personal side. So when you finish, because 75% of owners regret the sale a year later,
Wow.
when you finish, what are you going to be doing, and have you put proper plans in place? And it's like a retired athlete for life after, because it's something people have thrown a lot of their lives at, and they need to have an answer for next. So there's that side. How much money do you need out of the sale, and what are your, and that ties into the personal. So for you to achieve what you want to do, what you've set after you exit the business, what do you need in terms of funds for that? So let's make sure the business is of status that it can reap those rewards, and you will be able to achieve what you want to. And lastly is the business. How do you make the business exitable, transferable, and as high a value as you need in terms of your exit planning process?
Wow. 75% of business owners regret it.
Yeah, that's research from the Exit Planning Institute.
Wow, that thing, it's huge. But I think it's, like you mentioned, it's because they've thought so much about the sale, but maybe not a life after the sale, right? And so
yeah, and look, you can actively plan for that. You just have to, like anything in life, you've just got to give it the time and make it a conscious decision that, okay, I'm going to focus on it and figure out what that might look like for me. And you'll never get it perfect. No one ever does in anything, but at least you've got some direction, and it's something you can take action against.
Absolutely. Have you noticed any changing trends or best practice in this space, or have things, has the framework kind of remained the same for many years?
Like, there's certain things with selling a business that changes, and things fall in and out of favour. The multiple on which you can sell on, or industries that are preferred, change. But the fundamentals aren't too dissimilar. It is the wisdom of the ages.
Yeah.
What makes for a transferable business is one that can survive and thrive outside of the owner.
Yeah.
You need to give it enough time. If you want to have the best chance of an exit, you need to involve a whole team. So you think about your accountant, your lawyer, your insurance broker, people who offer advice, e.g. personal funds manager or a growth advisor like myself. Person who's providing you funding, bank or finance company. And when you come to sale, the person who's going to manage it for you, be merger and acquisition specialist, or probably at the smaller end of town, a broker. So make sure your team's involved. Make sure you start early enough, put your planning in place. But fundamentally, what makes for a good business hasn't changed over the years, and exit planning hasn't changed either.
Yeah, because like you said, right, what makes for a good business and what makes for a good business that's ready to sell is the same. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
No, it's cool. It's really good, Marty. Thank you. What have you enjoyed the most about speaking at these events across New Zealand? And are there any key takeaways that attendees are talking about?
Oh, look, it's again. If I come back to that, what I said about playing sports, and it's the Centre team,
Yeah.
they're fun events. Myself, my colleague David, who does it with me, and Matt Carnell from the BNZ, we have fun. We've got a pretty good pitch going on where we can talk quite effortlessly and pass between each other on it. So it's well received. Both the Icehouse and the BNZ staff around the country have been fantastic, and the clients, it's a good thing, and clients are interested. So that's been great. If I give you a couple of examples, like here's one. We had a customer at one of the events. They were going to exit their business. So the relationship manager from BNZ said, well, we've got this event come up. Why don't you come along and have a listen? They came to the event and they realised they were quite some distance off being a transferable or exitable entity. So what it did was give them the information to go back, pause for thought, reframe, and they're now looking at a 5-year exit where they're going to build in the value. They've got great relationship. BNZ have delivered well for them in this respect. So it's a fantastic result. If you get those out of it, it's great. I guess the thing that people have taken away is two things. It takes a bit of time, and it's something you can plan and do. So just make it a process like anything else in your business.
Yep, absolutely. No, it's good. And it's worth mentioning that these events are coming up in the Manawatu and Tauranga in October and November 2023, if you're listening. And so I'll put that information in the written copy notes of this podcast as well, because we would love to have anyone listening come along if you are interested to hear a little bit more and to go, it's sort of exactly like that example, Marty, go, where am I sitting on this journey of being able to exit a business? Then it's definitely a fantastic event to come along to. So that's great. Sounds good.
Bryar, we try and make these very educational. It's to give people an understanding. And we know that longer term, they can come to us if they need help. But even just having that education, that knowledge, really does progress them along the journey of, okay, cool, these are the things I need to start doing. And we actually make available a lot of free information at the events.
Yeah.
Because it's about education and making sure people know what they need to do.
Absolutely, yeah. And those events are on the October the 18th and November the 1st. So October the 18th is Manawatu and November the 1st is Tauranga. I will be at the Tauranga one, so looking forward to seeing anyone that is keen to come along to that one. But yeah, it's fantastic, Marty, and it's a topic that we're obviously hearing from alumni and from the wider business community. And then we put these events out across New Zealand and they have had incredible uptake in terms of having people in the room. So it's obviously something that business owners are starting to think about. And that's a really positive for the wider business community, right? It's a real one. So that's good. Love it. Hey, I want to finish with a question here. If you could offer one piece of advice to a business owner unsure or a little unsettled on what their next steps are, what would you say to them?
So the next steps with regard to an exit plan, or
an exit plan, succession, maybe they're within a family business or just a little bit unsettled, they're feeling on the brink of something new, but they're not sure what the next step is. Who do they talk to?
Oh, look, I'm a big believer in outside advice.
Awesome.
And I'll talk to you. So I had a client, and I ran them through a workshop this morning. They're about to go to Europe and try and negotiate with a major supplier for exclusivity over Australasia.
Wow.
Look, they knew everything they needed to do, but it's having that third party. And I just spent, I think we spent 3 hours on a whiteboard, and that was including the write-up of the notes, framing his story of how he's going to pitch why they should go with him and the advantages he can give and how he's best placed to help them crack the Australasian market. So often people have a relatively or a reasonable idea on what they need to do, but they've just not gone through the process of cohering their thoughts and put it into a set of actions that they're going to undertake. So look, if you've got uncertainty in any space, get someone who can work you through a process of defining what your need is, helping you with what the answer is, most of which they're going to do by getting stuff out of your head and maybe bringing in a third-party view. and then actions you can take which move you on the journey. And that's the most important thing. So Stephen Tyndall has a great quote from him, which is you get 1 out of 10 for the plan, 9 out of 10 for the execution.
Brilliant.
So find things you can go and start doing. And I love my clients who won't die wondering, the ones who will just get stuck in and do stuff, because it means we can make some real progress. And it's not always good progress, but if you take enough steps, you get there in the end.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic advice. It's so good. And it's so worth, what I hear you say too is sometimes it's in the business owner, they know, but they just need that outside opinion to even just give a bit of confidence to go, actually, yes, you're on the right track, or actually, no, there needs to be a bit of shift here. It's that accountability to get things done and the confidence that they're on the right track. So yeah, awesome.
Accountability is a huge thing. So hold your feet to the flame. The other thing is just take what's this huge volume of things that could be done and break it down into what's the first step. And, what's the next 3 months look like? Because not 90-day cycles are great. It's enough time to get things done, but not so much time you kicking the can down the road. But break it down into what are we going to do? What do we expect it to look like? And then how do we? It's like the old elephant. You only eat one bite at a time.
Yeah, that's right.
How do you break it into something you can start taking action against? And it's amazing what action does. It creates momentum, and you start to learn, and you start to get places.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. It's great. Hey, thank you so much for sharing, and also just really cool to have you part of the Icehouse coaching team as well. And I'm sure that if anyone is keen to reach out, it's great that they know that they've got someone else within the community to walk them through strategy and implementation, actually getting things done. So love having you part of it. If you are interested, anyone listening, feel free to get in touch with the Icehouse. Again, details in the written copy below. But yeah, thanks heaps for your time, Marty. Appreciate it, and hope to see some people at these incredible BNZ and Icehouse events as well.
Fantastic. Thanks, Bryar.